Today on the SuperCaZt.
And that's what's hard about this type of filmmaking.
Yes.
Is you can make something very goofy and people laugh at it, but to make something that's kind of goofy, and then still make something so cool that you're like, you know what, I really want to be James Bond. I want to be on this adventure with him. It's a lot of fun.
You expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Welcome back to the SuperCaZt, everybody. I am the Super Foch, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy, Steve Z. What's up, man?
Not much, and I'm sipping coffee here. This is not a vodka martini. This is just got off work, so got to get juice for this podcast. Not that I really need it too much.
And welcome, everyone, to the show. If you're new here, welcome. We love to talk movies on this podcast, and that's what we're doing today. But more specifically, we're talking about some of our favorite movies of all time, and that's, of course, the James Bond franchise. And today, we're talking about probably my personal favorite, Goldfinger. What's your feelings on Goldfinger, just preliminary, man?
So this one used to be not up there for me.
Really?
I don't know what it is.
Wow.
Like, I watched it, and I'm like, this is the stereotypical Bond. This is what it's all about. And I remember liking the car. I remember liking Odd Job.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I just went through this phase where I was just not as fun.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get into it. I was just like, it's silly. It's stupid. I mean, this whole Operation Grand Slam is it's just silly. It doesn't make any sense. But then I watched it a couple years ago, like just watching the whole series through, and it just clicked for me. It was just like, I enjoyed the tone. Like, to me, the best way to watch this one is you watch From Russia with Love, watch that serious espionage, I can't speak, spy film, and then you pop this one in, and it is like night and day, because this one, it gets silly from the scene one, and I kind of like that. I kind of like how it just embraces this new tone that the first two didn't really have, and it just kind of rolls with it, and this becomes part of the cinematic Bond, in my opinion. Is sort of what this film establishes, this sort of tone, sort of the silliness, sort of goofiness, but still so cool. It's not like Bond's a clown or anything.
Right. No, this movie is very, very special to me because it is my favorite. And I remember I had misremembered something that I probably told you off the air, but it was one Easter, and I got Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on VHS, and my brother got Goldfinger, and that's how I watched the movie for the first time on a VHS, and I just loved it. I loved the bad guy. I loved everything about it, the song. And I'm not the biggest Sean Connery fan when it comes to James Bond. I would probably prefer Roger Moore, or maybe even Pierce Brosnan. But after my viewing yesterday or the day before, man, he is James Bond, Sean Connery. I mean, these other guys are great, like I told you before, but you cannot deny that Sean Connery made this role what it is today. I mean, it's all him, and he shines in this film. There's a couple of things in this film that I'm sure we'll go over that are a little questionable or a little bit, maybe doesn't age too well. But as far as what is a Bond film, to me, it doesn't get any better than Goldfinger. I mean, yes, it's silly at times, but it's also a good story. And for me, a good Bond means you have a good villain, and who is better than Goldfinger? I mean, maybe besides a couple other people, but yeah. So I'm in love with this film. I'm going to love all over it in this episode. So I apologize if you are not a fan of this film. I don't know why you're watching this, but let's go ahead and give it some praise, man.
Stop! Look! He's gunning for trouble. 007. It spells Bond.
I'm probably going to do the same thing. I've got a few critiques, but it's mainly just praise. And I'm going to start with what you were just talking about, Sean Connery as James Bond, because to me, he's got a great performance in the first two films. But in this one, it's like he doesn't even try. This is just who he is. This is James Bond.
Yeah.
He could just be sitting there, just
Yep.
I'm just James Bond,
Yeah.
and he's acting. He's not acting. I don't know how you look at it. He's just perfect. He's awesome. And the coolest thing is just how cool he is. He's never rattled. And I know some people was going to find, this is kind of silly. He should be kind of not going here and try to steal Goldfinger's girlfriend the first scene of the film. He probably shouldn't try that.
Yeah.
But that's how this Sean Connery, that's how this James Bond rolls.
Yeah.
And I will say that there is one scene in particular that we'll get into later where he does show sort of the dramatic sort of, oh crap, I'm actually in trouble here. Yeah. And he's really good at that too. So that's what to me stands out. The first thing I look at is when I think of this film, I think of Sean Connery. I think of that suit he wears. I think of him standing next to that car. I mean, the filmmaker's giving him a lot of help here, but dude he's killing it with this performance.
Without a doubt. I mean, if you can make wearing a duck on your head not look too stupid, you're doing something right. And that's Sean Connery. By the way, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about this film, spoilers and all, so there's your one warning. But in the tease, he's underwater with a duck on his head to sneak into this villa or whatever you call it. And I mean, it's just you don't question it. You don't go, oh, he looks so funny. You're just like, that's just James Bond doing James Bond stuff. And I like what you said. He's almost effortless. It almost kind of reminds me of John Wayne in a Western. It's like these guys don't even have to try. They are who they say they are, and you just don't question it. And nowhere do you see this better in a Bond film than this film, especially here at this beginning, the tease, as they call it, before the opening credits. And I guess we'll talk about that here in just a second.
Let's talk about it right now. That's why I'm about to interrupt you, because you just mentioned my favorite thing, the duck head. So that's what I'm saying. This film changes tone night and day between From Russia with Love to this one. You would not see the James Bond Dr. No or From Russia with Love wearing that on his head. But it works. He shows up in this, and I love it how Guy Hamilton talked about this. He calls it just a little piece of nonsense. That's how he kind of classifies this. It has nothing to do with the plot. It has nothing to do with the rest of the film. It just kind of gets you excited about the film. And he shows up. He's infiltrating this base. Don't even know why. He's just doing spy stuff, sneaking around. And even in that, Connery's awesome. Just sneaking around, walking around. He's like a tiger or a panther or something out there doing this. And then he sneaks in there, sets the bomb, takes off his wetsuit. What does he got underneath? A tuxedo, a white tuxedo.
Just pristine and everything. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah, like I said, back in the day, that probably would have made me say, this is so stupid. What is he doing? But now I'm just like, that is the coolest thing. So cool. He goes in there, into the bar, lights a cigarette, the bomb goes off. At that point, if you're not sold on this film, you probably should watch another one. I just think they kind of nail the tone right there. They establish everything that's going to happen in this movie with just those first few scenes of no dialogue, mind you. Just Bond doing Bond stuff.
Yeah, and then, you get to where he's with the girl, and they're doing their thing, and all of a sudden, Bond looks in her eyes and see the bad guy behind him in the reflection of her eyes. First of all, I don't think you could actually do that in real life. Secondly, though, I will say it is an awesome shot. Like, whoever thought of that is a genius, because it just looks cool. Is it practical? No. Like I said, you wouldn't be able to do that. But again, you got to know what you're getting yourself into. James Bond is, for all intents and purposes, a superhero. What do you see all the time in superhero stuff? Just crazy stuff that you wouldn't see in real life. So I think with that mindset, this movie works completely well.
Yeah, and it's perfect at that. Just the escapism, this fun. I mean, he has a little tussle with this guy, but he just nonchalantly kills the guy and it's like, shocking. And then he goes through the door and blasts the music. It's really one of my favorite openings, even though it's not a ton happening here. He's not like doing any crazy stunts like he does in later films, but just like I said, it establishes the tone and just shows you, yeah, this is going to be a little different than the other films in the series, and I'm on board for it. You said you want to talk about the song and the title.
Oh, man.
What do you think about this one?
Oh, jeez. I love Goldfinger. I love the song. I think it's again just the quintessential Bond theme. Are there better themes? Maybe. Arguably, maybe, yeah. But this one is just so classic. I mean, Shirley Bassey, who went on to sing another one of Bond's themes, but I think she kills it the most with this one. I think this is definitely the one I would pick as the favorite of her two songs. What's your feelings on the title song, Goldfinger?
I like it, but I don't like it, if that makes sense. Like, this is a song that I really love that opening note and how it just smash cuts against the kind of silence you have before that, because he says his line, then he walks out the door, but there's a good 5 seconds of silence, then all of a sudden, ba ba, and it just like comes in really strong. It's like jumps out of your seat a little bit. I like that aspect. The actual title sequence, I mean, I guess this is before they started using Maurice Bender as like all the girls being rotoscoped and all that, and they're just basically projecting stuff on people. So that part, I can definitely see this limitations. It's not as cool as the other openings, but the song, sure, like you said, I guess it's stereotypical because it kind of sets the tone, or not the tone, the sort of formula for the rest of these. Most of them just have this bombastic, I'm just going to sing the title to you, like Thunderball, you know, all those, and Live and Let Die. I mean, that's kind of what they do. And I think the main purpose of these is just kind of keep the excitement going and try to get people excited for what's going to happen, because there's a lot of slow scenes after this, and that's kind of fine. I mean, that's what it is. You don't want to be roller coaster the whole film. You want to kind of enjoy the plot, enjoy the ride, and that's the thing that stands out to me about this time is a lot of the Connery films, you're kind of just hanging out with him. He's not really doing a ton in a lot of them. He's doing some sleuthing, doing some moving around stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that it's kind of like the movie is in no hurry. It just kind of like hang out with James Bond. The plot will come, all the action will come later. Just enjoy the ride for now. Just enjoy this little escape from your everyday life.
So let's go ahead and get into it. The plot of Goldfinger is, do you enjoy it? Do you feel like it's a good plot? Do you feel like it's a good story? Do you think it holds up the entire film?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's definitely interesting how it does some globe hopping, even though it almost doesn't serve a purpose in some cases, because eventually you end back up in America again. It's like, okay, we were in Miami, now we're back in Kentucky now. So the locations, I'll knock it on that, because that's normally what I look for in a Bond film is some great locations. Another that part in Switzerland where they're up in the Alps. It's really not that much, but I think what's compelling about the plot is just the character at the forefront of it. The titular character, Goldfinger, Gert Frobe as him. This guy is probably the best Bond villain. I especially classic Bond. I mean, he's just awesome.
No doubt. And I love that they kind of make you appreciate him before he even comes on the screen. It's like, we don't know who this guy is. We don't really know why Bond's following him around in Miami, but apparently he's this bad guy that loves gold, you know, and he is obsessed with it. And like you said, I think he's one of the best Bond villains, maybe one of the best movie villains of all time. Now, the actor that played him, you actually don't hear his speaking voice for real. He's actually dubbed because the man was German. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's not an easy thing to do. Like, if you guys didn't know, it's hard to make this guy that we're dubbing in after the fact sound like he's actually in the room talking to these people. But they do it, and it's really cool. And
a really good job too. I have to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. What do you think works about him as a villain?
Just his presence. I mean, you don't know this guy, but the way they talk about it, because I think they call him some kind of terrorist, and so you're like, okay, this guy's bad news. And what else do you know about him? Oh, he loves gold. Who doesn't? No, this guy's obsessed with it. I mean, his car is made of gold. He's got a gold putter. I didn't even know till this last viewing that he plays with a gold putter, man. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I never even realized that. And so this guy is all about it. And he's kind of a sleazeball. He uses this beautiful girl to help him cheat at cards. And he gets called on the carpet by our Mr. Bond. But even that does not end well for Bond, especially this girl. And one of the most iconic scenes of this film is when Oddjob sneaks in and turns her gold.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how he did it so fast. It's like 2 little ding ding, and then she's done. I'm like, that would have taken at least an hour.
I'm pretty sure he was out for a bit. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bond was out for a bit. I mean, he got hit pretty hard on the back of the head. Maybe he's in there in the floor, kind of rolling around for a bit. But going back to this thing, so yeah, Goldfinger, I think he's great, mainly because he shouldn't be menacing. He should not be a villain that you're kind of think is a good villain, because you just look at him and you're just like,
right,
this guy's our main villain.
Yeah.
I mean, first scene, he's despicable. He's just showing up his little swim trunks and his shirt, playing cards, cheating at cards. And I think that's the little things, these little details they write into his character that make him cool. Or not cool, just sort of menacing, sort of sinister.
Right.
He's going to cheat at that. He's going to cheat at golf. And he basically running this gold smuggling operation, eventually wants to knock off some Fort Knox. And that's, to me, that's his biggest thing, is this guy is not happy just being an average criminal. He wants to be the biggest criminal ever. He wants to rob. First, you think he's going to rob Fort Knox, but no, he's got a bigger plan. He wants to basically invalidate all the gold in the U.S. and make his gold more valuable. So it's a crazy plot, and it trickles in very little, but not in the way that some of the Bond films do, where they just kind of throw it in there the last 15 minutes, and you're like, okay, so what's this about? There's a few of them, like Octopussy or Living Daylights or something like that, where they kind of just do too much with the plot. And I think this one does just enough. And they do it just enough with Goldfinger, and they add all these little details to make you kind of like him a little bit more. To me, the scene that always stands out is back when they're in Kentucky. He invites all these gangsters to his house. Yeah. And he tells them the plan. But why does he tell them the plan? Because he just kills them immediately afterwards.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because I knew we would talk about it. I think he's just showing off.
Yeah.
I think he's just grandstanding and saying, hey, look what I can do. And you're either with me or you're against me. And of course, our good friend Mr. Solo is not with Goldfinger. And, he gets compacted a little bit.
Yeah, and that whole part's memorable. It's silly. Yeah. Yes, it's a way of them basically telling the audience the plot, what his plan is. But like you said, I think he just does it because he wants to show off, this is how smart I am. This is my great plan. But sorry, you guys can't tell anybody. I'm going to have to end you now. I just wanted to brag a little bit. And that's the thing about this screenplay, going back to it again, because you asked me about it and I didn't really have a good answer. It's actually pretty good because, yes, there are parts where it kind of slows down, like Bond is captured for a good portion of the film. But at the same time, it has all these little moments that are sprinkled in that should be slow and shouldn't work in a film like this, but they do. Like, say, for instance, the golf scene. Like, do you know any other standout golf scenes in a Bond film or any other action sort of film? It's not really.
it's so funny because a scene like this should be kind of boring and not really work. But I think Sean Connery's charisma and even though you don't hear the guy actually talking, he just plays this part so well. His screen, and I'm talking about the guy that played Goldfinger. They're an interesting pair. And then of course you got the caddy for Bond, who is, with James and trying to get old Goldfinger, get his goose because he apparently doesn't like him for whatever reason. And so I really like the golf scene. I think it's really, really interesting. I love when he throws that gold piece down and it like distracts Goldfinger so he misses his putt. I mean, just these little things just show you how much gold is not only part of this guy's name, but it's in his psyche. Like he's obsessed with it. I mean, when you say obsessed, I mean he is, and so it's sort of his downfall. At the end of it, it's something he wants so much. He wants this glory. He wants to be feared, and he doesn't realize that Bond is probably as smart, if not maybe a little bit smarter than him. And you realize that and I think that's one of the genius parts of the plot is you realize that Bond is a really good match for this guy, and Bond can take this guy out. And I think they do a good job of explaining that and showing that. And I don't really think the plot really slows down. I know there's a scene that we'll probably talk about here in a minute that you say slows the movie down a little bit. But we'll get back to that.
Yeah, we'll get back to that one. It's really good. And one last thing about Goldfinger is this guy is vicious. Like, he doesn't look like it. He does not look like an evil guy. Yeah. But to me, the fact that he shows up knowing, hey, this thing could possibly go awry. He pulls out that other uniform, changes, and just machine guns his own men. This guy is cold-blooded. He is the only one that's going to be fine. He blows up his own henchman that would do anything for him, or he's going to. It's just kind of crazy. It shows you this guy he's very evil, and I kind of like that. He's a villain that we like to like, and also very menacing. But I have to get to this now because I was about to not get to it. I didn't have it in the script originally, but I just wrote it in there. This film establishes the Q scenes. And we had Q in the one prior to this, but he just met up in M's office. He's like, here's your briefcase. Check it out. It's really cool. And this one establishes the Q scenes. And this one thing I read about this week was Guy Hamilton basically told Desmond Llewellyn how to act the scene. He tells him, hey, this guy, you don't like him. He is not kind to your stuff. He roughs it up. So be a little, this guy's a little petulant kid. So treat him like that. Because originally he was supposed to play it as like he's admiring Bond. Like, he's like, I wish I was you. I wish I could go on these things. I'm so glad they made that change because it totally changed this character. And that car, I mean, gosh, it's this time it really got to me because Bond's sitting there, he's like, where's my Bentley? Because that's how he rolls. And then they're like, no, we just got you this Aston Martin here, this DB5. Check it out. I don't know, just the scene plays for itself. It's great.
I couldn't agree more, man. And those Q scenes, they get funnier as the movies go on. This is sort of a straight-laced. I mean, Bond has a few quips, but it's more or less, just very straight and everything. But then, like you said, we meet the Bond equivalent of the Batmobile. I mean, it's beautiful. It looks great, and I mean, everybody wants to be Bond and drive that car. And if you say you don't, you're lying, because you do. At least once, anyway. And I love it. I love the car. I think it's a beautiful car, and it does play a part in the whole plot and everything. And the scene with Q is, like I said, it's more straight-laced in this one. There's not as much comedy. I do like that the scenes get funnier as the movies go on. But I think for an intro, I think this scene really works because, yes, there is a little bit of levity and there's a little bit of comedy there, but it's still like, okay, Bond, don't break my stuff. I don't joke about it. Let's just, get through this. I just love how they wrote that. And I think it's a brilliant way to kind of start that part of the Bond mythos off.
Yeah. And we get our Bond girl like halfway through this film, and shows up. It's like Bond's been knocked on the head after the intense laser scene, which I guess we'll talk about that real fast. This is the scene I was saying that
The laser scene, yes.
Connery,
yeah.
he actually shows fear. He's like, "Oh crap, I might not get out of this," and you can tell his wheels are working. He's like, "How can I sweet talk my way out of this?" And Goldfinger's not giving up anything. He's like, "Oh, that's okay. I'll just dispose of you," something like that. I don't know what he says, but that scene is just so good. I mean, especially
I love it. Oh yeah, and he had the best line, because when Bond says, "Do you expect me to talk, Goldfinger?" He's like, "No, I expect you to die. I just want you gone. I don't care. You're just annoying me." And like you said, Bond, you can see his wheels are turning. I mean, you literally can. And there's a little bit of sweat on Mr. Bond's brow. He doesn't sweat a lot in these films, but he is definitely a little bit nervous about this. And who wouldn't be? Especially with what's like, a few inches from a very vital organ.
Yeah, it's cutting it close.
And I love how they play this. I love how they play the stress of this. I mean, yeah, it probably slowed down a lot, than it would have in real life. Like, he probably would have been dead in real life the way that was going, because it just slowed down a lot right there. And he would have gotten at least injured, of how close it was. But no, he saved him right at the last second. But that is one of the best scenes, or one of the best lines of the film is, "Do you expect me to talk? Nope. I just want you dead." And that in there encapsulates Goldfinger. He is a guy that will do anything and everything to get whatever he wants. And he's not going to bargain with anybody. This is his game, his rules, and the fact that Bond gets out of that is kind of amazing, actually.
Definitely. And we segue from that to Bond's waking up on the plane, just kind of vision's blurry, and then the first thing he sees is Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore, and she's an interesting Bond woman to me because
That's a good way to put it.
Yes, we have that controversial scene in the barn, and at the same time, I think it's pretty neat how she's kind of like a woman who is in charge. I mean, yes, she's working with Goldfinger, but the key word there is with. He's not working for her, or she's not working for him, I should say, because she's like the head of these, I guess, airplane people or whatever, these flying circus, and he's like his personal pilot and stuff. But I don't know, she just seems a lot stronger than the Bond girls from the first two films, and I think for pretty much most of the series. So what do you think about her character?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the most women that Bond hooks up with in a movie? Because like he gets the girl from the tease, and then of course the first girl that Goldfinger's helps him, gets her, and then her sister. They just kind of talk. They don't really do anything, and then you get Pussy Galore, and she's the one that's, I guess, the official Bond girl for this film. Honestly, this is probably my one negative of this film. I'm just not a fan of this character, and I don't really know why. Like, it doesn't bother me she's assertive and that she flies and that she kind of. I don't know what it is, man, and I really tried to think of a good explanation to validate this, because I really don't have one, and it makes me mad that I can't come up with anything just off the top of my head. But she's just not my favorite in the series. She's okay. I mean, she's not terrible, but of all the women that he encounters in this film, she is definitely my least favorite. So
Interesting. That's a hot take.
If you can sway me the other way, I would love to hear your view on her character. I
can't really. I would just say she's probably not your cup of tea. I think the character is written well. Yeah, the performance. Sure. Yeah, the performance didn't do it for me the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or how many times. She eventually grew on me, and maybe it's one of those things where maybe she's more iconic than she's actually good in the film. Like you think about the name, you think about the performance, but not really so much what she does. Plus, it's kind of weird. She does a 180 just because of the barn scene.
That's it.
Which, like I said, in the 60s, they would probably interpret that scene a lot different than we do now.
Sure.
It's one of those scenes that a lot of people have a sort of a rough time with in 2024. But I'm not going to apologize for it or anything. But I'm just going to say this is what happens when you watch a movie that was made in 1964.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and I do like that they do establish the silly tone with her still. I mean, just her name, but also the flying circus. I mean, how are they using the plot? They fly over Fort Knox, and they put everybody to sleep.
Yep.
And this is one of those things I used to think drug really bad back in the day, but now I just die laughing every time I watch it. I don't know why. It's just so funny watching these guys that salute, and all of a sudden, they're on the ground. They're just sitting there doing their exercises, and they're down. Just instantly. Like, nobody's like, oh, those guys are falling down over there. It's like, no, we're all down at the same time. And that was probably fun to shoot that. It's like, okay, guys, on the count of 3, everybody needs to drop to the ground right now.
And down.
It's just so funny.
I think he hit the nail on the head, though. And I think that's it. Going back to Pussy Galore, I think the fact that she was, unlike these other girls, she was so against Bond for most of the film. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to try to fight a little bit. Oh, no, I can't do it. She's mine. And I told you at the end of the film, the ending of this film really bothered me. You know, they're going down on the plane, and then all of a sudden they're on the island, and now they're hooking up. It's just like, it didn't fit right with what you knew of the character before. Because like I said, he hooks up with at least 2 other girls, and you know they don't even put up a struggle. This girl's putting up a fight, literally, for most of the film, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, Bud." I'm like, no, that goes against everything that I thought the character was. So, and again, like you said, this is made 50 plus years ago. It's a different time. It was a different time, but I think that's the thing that just bothered me about the character, is that they change her whole, demeanor or whatever. The character is just so different, and you wouldn't expect her to just eventually fall. Like, I guess maybe, but I don't know. I don't think that part of the film works for me as well as everything else.
The rest of it. Yeah, I hear you, and I guess that's what I was saying about the whole film. You kind of just have to roll with it.
Yep.
Because, silly stuff happens. Yeah, just like she just changes one scene to the next. We don't even know what happened. They're just kind of surprised. Like, oh, we tell Felix about this. And we're running out of time. Yeah. But I got to talk about the best thing that kind of matches with this whole thing, the tone. Mm-hmm. Because he's equally sinister, but equally goofy. Mm-hmm. And that's Odd Job. Harold Sakata's Odd Job. Woo! I mean, you just look at him. He's this big old... Look at the actor. He's actually Japanese American, and he also was a professional wrestler at one point. But this guy, he's menacing, as in we see this guy kill a lot of people by throwing his hat. His hat, this razor blade, which is just ridiculous. Like, what do you use? You use a gun? No, I use a hat. And same time, he's so menacing. Like the fight at the end with him and Bond, there's not a second in there where you're like, oh yeah, Bond, he's got this.
Right.
It's like, no, it's like facing off against a monster or something. This guy's so huge you can't hurt him. And he's got a hat. What do you think about Odd Job?
I love him. And I've always loved this guy. I think he's a really good villain, and because that's what he is. He is strictly. They don't even let him speak. Like, every time he has anything to do with anybody, he goes I mean, he doesn't even speak words. So he is almost like a monster. Like, he is just this killing machine, and all he has to do is just throw his hat, and boom, there goes your head. It's kind of silly, but it's also kind of scary at the same time. So I think it was a very good move on their part.
And that's what's hard about this type of filmmaking. Is
Yes.
you can make something very goofy and people laugh at it, but to make something that's kind of goofy, like we're saying, like we started with the scene talks with a duck head at the very beginning, and then it still makes something so cool that you're like, you know what, I really want to be James Bond. I want to be on this adventure with him.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. There are a few minor critiques. I'm going to throw them in here right at the end.
Sure.
That whole part with the gangsters I already mentioned, but they kill Mr. Sulu in the trash compactor for like 30 minutes. It seems like it's probably only like 2 or 3 in the film, but
yeah,
it's just so annoying. But this is not my favorite James Bond score. If I have to be critical about it, this is, I don't know. It's too brassy at times. It's not that pleasant to listen to.
Yeah.
Do you have any critiques? Anything's?
For me, like I said, the whole Pussy Galore thing is kind of, whatever. I don't mind the trash compactor scene because I just think that's a really cool visual to see this car go from a car to a box, and then that box gets put in the back of another car, and he just drives away. I think that's kind of a funny scene, and a little bit lighthearted. Otherwise, it's a really terrible scene because the guy just got squished in there. So I think they do a really good job of putting comedy and lightheartedness into this film. I think the villain is just extremely well done. Like I said, again and again, I'm not a huge fan of Pussy Galore, but it is what it is. But I just think this movie is just fun, and I think all the negatives just get so much outshone by all the positives of this film. And if you really want to know James Bond, I think this is the best film to go into first.
Yeah, that's my final thought. It's
Definitely.
This is your textbook Bond. If you want to know what classic Bond's like, watch this. If you want to know what more recent Bond is, probably watch Casino Royale. But this is the one. It's got all the elements. It actually created a lot of those elements that all the other ones copy, and it kind of sets this over-the-top nature that we just love. And it's why we love going on these adventures with James Bond.
Yep.
And why we on the SuperCaZt are going to come back to him again very soon.
Oh, no, you don't. This is no time to be rescued.
Hey folks, this is Steve Z here, wearing some sunglasses like how my co-host usually wears, but I'm doing that because it's summer, but also because we're celebrating James Bond this summer. Yes, you just watched that Goldfinger episode that we shot about a month ago, but we've been on a little hiatus, a little bogged down with work, a little bogged down with family life and all that good stuff, and we're ready to bring you some cool stuff now. We've been planning it out, we've been ranking our Bonds, we've been talking about Bond. Tons of Bond content coming up in the next few weeks. So if you're all about that, please stay tuned. Please tell your friends. It's going to be great. But in addition to that, we also have a Superman episode coming out next week. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining us on the SuperCaZt.
If you enjoy James Bond, let us know. Give us a like on the video. Make sure you are subscribed so you will not miss another of our videos. Follow us on X at SuperCaZt with a Z. And we'll see everybody next time on the SuperCaZt.